Okay, we are going to talk about odd and even functions. It should be review from last year in Honors Trig Pre-Calc and maybe even in Accelerated Algebra 2. A function f of x is odd if this is true. If f, if f of the opposite of x equals the opposite of f of x, and we'll talk about that in a minute, what that means. And if a function is an odd function, we say that it is symmetric about the origin. Okay, so let's look at this graph right here. This graph is a graph of an odd function. And here is x, and let's say that x is 2. And this is f of 2 up here. Okay, and it's some positive value. Well, then the opposite of x over here would be negative 2. And this point right here would be the negative value of f of 2. And it's symmetric about the origin here. If we kind of folded it on the origin, this piece of the graph would flip over on that piece of the graph. Okay, so then an even function, a function is even if f of the opposite of x is exactly equal to f of x, and we say that it is symmetric about the y-axis. Okay, so here let's say this is x equals 2, and this is f of 2. If we do f of negative 2, which is the opposite of 2, then the value is the same. And it's symmetric with respect to the y-axis, because if we folded it right there along the y-axis, we can see that this part of the graph would fold over and fit exactly on that other part of the graph. So if the point xy is on an odd function, then we know that the point negative x, negative y, is also on that odd function. And if the point xy is on an even function, then so is the point negative x, but the y stays the same. You can determine if a function is odd or even algebraically. Okay, and it's kind of a 3-step process. In order to do this, you first step is replace every x with the opposite of x. Notice I'm saying the opposite of x and not negative x. Sometimes if we say negative x, students assume that means a negative number. That's not necessarily true, because if x started out to be negative, then the opposite of that would be a positive number. Okay, the second step of this process of determining if a function is odd or even is to simplify. And then the third step is determine if the new function is equal to the opposite of f of x, exactly f of x, or neither. Okay, so let's do a couple of these. Here's our original function. Let's determine if this is odd, even, or neither. So we're going to put in the opposite of x everywhere where we see an x. So that means the opposite of x cubed plus 2 times the opposite of x minus 1. Now let's simplify. negative x cubed, negative x times negative x times negative x is negative x cubed. 2 times negative x, sorry, that's cubed, is negative 2x, and then that's minus 1. All right, so now it's all simplified. Step 3, determine if the new function is the opposite of f of x, or neither. Well, this is the opposite of that. This is the opposite of that, but this is the same as that. And so this is a situation where this function that we started with is neither odd nor even. All right, let's look at the next one. I'm going to move this up a little bit to make it easier. We're going to do the same thing. We're going to substitute the opposite of x into everything. So that's going to be the opposite of x cubed minus 2 times the opposite of x over the opposite of x. Let's simplify. That's negative x cubed plus 2x over negative x. Let's see. This is the opposite of that. That's the opposite, and that's the opposite. So this is equal to negative f of x, and so wait a minute, I don't want to do that. Let's see. Nope, that's not true. I just had a rethink here. Okay. I'm going to factor negative 1 out of the top. If I do that, I get x to the third minus 2x. And then on the bottom, I have a negative x. And guess what? Those negative ones cancel. And this is now exactly that. And so this is equal to exactly f of x. So this is an even function. All right, let's look at the next one. Ooh, this is a trig one. Ooh, let's see. Let's do f of negative x here. I got to get some more pencils up here to help me out. All right, in order to do this, we need to remember some trig. And that's what I want to put on here first so that this can help us out. We need to remember if sine and cosine are odd or even functions. Do you remember? Let's see. Remember. Let's look at sine. So let's look at the sine of pi over 2. We know that the sine of pi over 2 from our unit circle is 1. Let's look at the sine of the opposite of that. The sine of negative pi over 2 is negative 1. So sine is an odd function. All right, now let's look at cosine. The cosine of pi is negative 1. The cosine of the opposite pi, if we go back around the other way, guess what? We still get negative 1, and so cosine is an even function. So let's go ahead and look at this function and see what happens if we put negative x inside there. So that's sine cubed of negative x minus, we'll put a negative x in for there, and then cosine cubed of negative x. Now, remembering our odd and even functions, since sine is an odd function, this right here is going to be the opposite of sine cubed of x, and then this cosine is going to be the same, and these two negatives become this, which is going to be positive x cosine cubed of x, and you can see that this is the opposite of that, that is the opposite of that, and so this is the opposite of f of x, so we get an odd function. Okay, so that's a review of odd and even functions. If you have questions, please write them down and we can discuss them more tomorrow in class.